Hello and welcome to episode number 111 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, card games. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim. And Dan, today we find out if casual and competitive can live together in harmony.
I think we should start singing Kumbaya. Kumbaya.
No.
Why not, man? I like.
I don't know the words.
We're doing it live, by the way.
I don't know the words.
You don't know the words to Kumbaya? No. It's Kumbaya, my lord. Okay, yeah, I could keep going, but I'm not gonna do that. So anyway, what's up, everybody? Jim, what's up, man? How are you? How are you? It's been a week. It's been a week. So yeah, today we're diving back into the casual v competitive debate, the ongoing saga in every TCG that has ever existed. Correct? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Why is that? Like, firstly, why is that? Like, why is this always? Why
because
is this
honestly,
always a
the
thing?
casual people are just upset because they don't put as much money into it as other people, and they don't have the good cards, and they can't get the good cards at a cheap price unless they crack product. Guys don't crack product if you're looking for singles sometimes, okay? Yeah, it's really, honestly, I think it's just the casual people's fault. I think it's their fault that they're so mad.
Guys, if you don't know Jim, let me introduce you to Jim. He's also known as the troll, like Jim the troll. He's the troll that lives under the bridge.
Yes.
I feed him every other day. I let a picnic basket of food.
Dude, all I gotta do is go on Twitter if I want to get fed. You know? That's it.
That is so true. That's so true. All right. Well, that's what we're talking about today. But before we get into the episode, we need to talk about our sponsor, Amazon Audible. If you head over to our affiliate link, www.audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness, you can sign up for your free 30-day trial of Amazon's Audible service. When you do that, you get a free credit added to your account. If you're an Amazon Prime member, 2 free credits added to your account. You can exchange those credits for free audiobooks on the service. And what's even better is if you don't like the service, you can cancel before the end of that 30-day period, and you get to keep those free credits on your account. That's right. If you're if you're watching right now and you're playing the drinking game of drink whenever Dan touches glasses, you've already taken about 10 drinks right now. Okay, and then the other one was okay. So again, if don't forget, follow that link, www.audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness. Sign up for your free 30-day trial of Amazon's Audible service today. All right, I'm never gonna forget that. By the way, touching the glasses and the okay. I haven't worn my contacts in a while, so I need to start doing that again. But yeah, so we've actually talked about this topic, I think, plenty of times, plenty of times, and we dove like headfirst into this debate about what was episode 47? I think it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
April of 2022. So April of last year is when we last talked about it.
A year and a half ago?
But this topic is one that always gets brought up. Now, the reason we're talking about it now is specifically because of Lorcana. So Lorcana, and then it also made me starting to think of Star Wars Unlimited coming out next year, right? Yeah. And FFG has already done, they have pretty much already started laying the groundwork of how they want the game, the community to feel. Yeah. And I think FFG has done a really good job, like, of saying, hey, we're gonna have stuff for competitive people, and we're gonna have stuff for casual people. Yeah. I think right now the problem with Lorcana is it's been crickets from Ravensburger. Game's been out for a few months, and there is no OP yet. Yeah. Everything that's out right now is all third party, secondhand. None of it's official, which is great. Like, that's good from the standpoint of a community is already stepping up to make events available. So, but yeah, the reason we're talking about this is Mr. Citizens of Lorcana, which, if you listened to last week's episode, I had a good chat with him actually. I told you guys, like, Jared's a cool guy. He's great. Jared's great. So we talked for a couple days actually, just on and off, just about the whole thing. But yeah, basically I told him he was wrong.
Yeah. He's great, but we can make him better.
True, and he knows
the technology.
He knows this. So anyway, if you haven't, we were trolling. We trolled a little bit and had some fun, but go listen to last week's episode of why scalpers are a good thing. When I posted that, like Jared posted the link to Twitter.
Oh, that's
and
great.
people were just like, "What now?"
Go watch it.
Just go listen to it. Go watch the videos. It was pretty good. So
That's great.
All right, but anyway, Jared made
Jared's like any publicity is good.
pretty
publicity.
much, and that's the truth. Yes, but anyway, Jared posted this other topic, and guys, also he has his own podcast. This is the Citizens of Lorcana podcast. If you want to listen to Jared and his co-host Dan talk all about Lorcana and Lorcana related things, go check that out. But he put this tweet out there and said, "I have one more question for our podcast tomorrow. I see the terms toxic and toxicity thrown out there a lot. What exactly does the term toxic mean to you?" And that kind of got this whole thing started. And of course, when you start talking about toxicity in card games, it always gets brought up of the casual v competitive debate. So if you go back to that episode where we talked about casual competitive, like we went and defined casual, more so defined like what competitive is, right? So we defined like what competition competitive actually means. And then we landed on, what did we land on in that episode? That what Villainous is a casual game?
Yes. Yes.
Because I think in that episode, where did we come up with Uno being competitive? Somebody said that they were like in a competitive Uno.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm like, dude, I don't care. All right. I'm so glad you have an exception to the rule.
Which, yes, and like literally anything can be competitive, and we get that, we understand that, right? But that's not even the question here. Like, that's not the question, because again, I think this topic kind of recognizes that anything can be competitive, right?
Yeah.
So you have any game like Lorcana, for instance, or we were talking about Villainous, right? In that other episode, right? Of there being room for both types of communities.
For Villainous, no.
No?
Because there's no competitive.
Hey, they had a
casual.
tournament. They had a tournament at Gen Con.
It was a poop show, man.
What did you even watch any of it?
They didn't have they barely even know rules, okay? They don't have any judge on staff. They're just figure it out. That's what they're like. They're just like figure it out.
So he knows that some of that is actually factually incorrect. Don't worry, we know it's just Jim trolling. Okay,
Yeah.
if you're a competitive, if you're a competitive Villainous player and your blood pressure is rising, calm down.
They
He's
literally
just trying
were
to
sitting
rally
in
you.
a corner. They turned one of the trash bins upside down, and they were playing the card game.
like here.
Yeah, I don't even think that they were speaking any form of real language.
Yeah,
to be honest.
So when Jared posted this, there was a nice long thread between Jedi Geek Girl and Travers Tavern on Twitter, basically going on about casual v competitive. So I want to kind of read through this for a little bit, get Jim's takes, get Jim's thoughts, and then I'll kind of give you my takes, because I think this thread, in all honesty, Jim, you tell me if you agree with this. I kind of think this thread kind of perfectly highlights what the discussion normally is between casual and competitive players alike, of what they're looking for, and then what each party in essence is kind of looking for, and then why the others sometimes can get pushed out. Because we read through that kind of leading up to this, and would you kind of agree with that, or what's your initial take on that?
Yeah, I mean, looking through it, it's just, I mean, like, people just don't want to be left out at all. And it's kind of a problem because it's like, it's just, as of right now, it's just not big enough in terms of.
You're saying like
a lot of
Lorcana?
things. Yeah.
Okay.
Or,
It's the game itself.
Yeah.
Whatever game we're talking
like
about.
it's a really big game, but it's like there's not a lot of stuff out there. There's not a lot of events going on. We don't really have anything. It's just so early on, and people just want it to be here, but it's just not here right now.
Yeah. So kind of what I want to do is I kind of just want to read through the thread, kind of give an overall synopsis and some bullet points of the quote problems, if you will, okay, in this discussion / debate, right? And then I want to outline some what we or I view as solutions? Because I have some ideas. We did talk about them a little bit, but it's really just kind of like a couple minor bullet points of here's where the quote solution is going to lie, right? And there's going to be kind of different facets to that, all right? So let's kind of read through it, all right? So the initial post was, again, from Jared, Citizen of Lorcana, about what does toxicity mean to you? And then there were some replies to James Reimer's post, which James made a pretty good post here, and I kind of want to read this just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I think James kind of he's got some interesting takes here, okay? So he says, my assumption is Lorcana came with this promise of bringing Disney fans and veteran TCG players together, which it did, because I think they came out and publicly said this, right? So I don't think that's wrong, right? But I'm finding that people coming from those opposite ends aren't naturally mixing. They don't naturally mix. That's correct. No. They don't naturally mix. So one, quote, persona will call the other side's behavior toxic because they're coming from different worlds and not meeting in the middle. Does that happen? Sure. Can it happen? Yes. But that's not like it happens 100% of the time, because again, that is an individual person. I think that is on an individual anecdotal scale. Like that's when you see those things happening, right? Because we don't have any data to suggest any of this, right? But I'm not saying James is wrong here. Okay, second paragraph, this is an interesting one. The TCG veterans take it very seriously, meaning the game, and aren't used to having women around, so they sometimes say off-putting things that make women and children not feel safe. Then purely Disney fans just want to have fun with their favorite characters, but can't because people will just obliterate them and judge them for being casual. They also get frustrated with the veteran players for playing, quote, meta because it restricts their enjoyment. It's hard to make everyone happy right now with our only official format being 1v1 and a community heavy on 1K events with money on the line. There's kind of a lot to unpack there, but I think the first thing, which probably the first 80% of this paragraph talks about, honestly is all personal. And what I mean by that is, does this stuff happen? Sure. But it's up to you to let that affect you or not. Okay. You going to something and someone, again, saying like women around, so they say off-putting things that make women and children not feel safe. This is not a popular take, I don't think, but that's on you. Like, not you saying it, but you receiving that, right? Now, do I think you should go to any event and say whatever the heck you want and make people feel uncomfortable? No, I don't think that. I think you go to an event, especially when there's kids around, watch your mouth. Yeah. Like, I have kids, so I know, and I've said things to people, but like, dude, my kids are here. Let's chill it with the language, or or whatever, right? So. Mind you, I'm not out here saying, hey, you should go and say whatever the heck you want. Don't feel like you have to hold back. No. Be responsible. Be responsible, be respectful. But two things can be true at the same time, I think, Jim. I think you should be respectful. I think you should do your best to, be kind and all of those things, right? But at the same time, if you misspeak or you say something that somebody gets offended by, that's because they chose that, right? And again, that's more so from an adult, right? In an adult mind, right? Yeah. Like kids, that's a completely different thing. Like if there's kids around, just you be responsible, be respectful. Period. End of story, right? But even if there's not, I think you still need to do that. Would you agree? Disagree? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, if. I know that there are people that will go out of their way to say hurtful things
like Jim being a troll.
Individuals. Like I said, I know people do that, Dan.
Yes, true. Yes, true.
Myself. But I do think that's kind of a different thing of, actively looking to piss someone off. Okay. And just like speaking your mind about certain things.
Yes. So, yes, true.
Yeah.
Or yeah, so you're saying that you're saying those are two different things. Like
Yeah.
the mindset of, hey, I'm gonna say whatever I want to specifically get under this person's skin or to upset them,
Yeah.
versus, hey, I have no ill will, no ill intent behind what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I'm just telling you what I think on the matter.
And I do also know that that it's up to the person of, because you can't control the actions of people around you,
Right.
You know, and so to speak, but you can always control how you react to things.
Yeah, you can control what you say, how you respond.
But like, there's also a thing of if someone just keeps poking, keeps poking, and keeps going and keeps going, and especially if you talk to this person about it, like, hey, you know, I kind of have a problem with this. Are you able to stop this? You know, I don't want this to escalate. And like they keep causing this to be a problem.
Because I think in a situation like that, that's something that could get to harassment levels.
Exactly.
Right. Like verbal harassment or whatever the case may be. Like, yes, you still have the responsibility to control yourself to not say, not necessarily not say anything, but you still have that responsibility on your shoulders. Right. But at what point does it become, okay, they've crossed a line? Like, like those there, and there are people who do that. Like there are people who are like, I'm going to specifically cross a line. Right. Do you think that's a majority of TCG players though?
Majority?
I think I don't think so, but I also think
majority of Yu-Gi-Oh players.
But what I was gonna say was I do think that if you see something like that or it happens to you, because always those negative things that happen are going to cloud everything else. And so if one thing happens in a year, right, there are people who would say, yeah, there's been, even though you've had like, you went to 100 events and then one of them you had one bad encounter, right? That event is going to become a cloud over everything. And then you could just say, well, I had that one bad experience and I think it's a majority. They might even say it's a majority of events, right? Or experiences when it was really this just one time. This is like I think there's a psychological effect or psychological condition when things like that happen. Because it messes with your head a little bit. Like where it's not really accurate of what actually happened. Right. Because one bad thing happened, right? It just creates this cloud over everything else. Right. So I don't think it's a majority, but sometimes it feels like it.
I do also think in a competitive setting and this isn't just for card games, it's like
in general,
a lot of stuff competitively speaking. There's going to be a lot of stuff talking is what I'll say. Talking. And some people aren't equipped to handle that.
No.
And like
Gary
Payton.
You know who Gary Payton is?
Gary Payton?
The glove, He point guard for the Seattle Supersonics. When Michael Jordan was playing, he was a notorious smack talker. You know who else was a notorious smack talker? Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was, because he knew talking. That's the easiest way to get under someone's skin. And the majority of people let it affect them. And you have to be strong mentally up here to not let it affect you, especially in a game where the battlefield really is in your mind, because you have to be thinking through these problems and these lines of play. So it's all a mind game.
Which is phenomenal in these card games, because if you are able to get inside of someone's head, it's like, oh man, it could be really detrimental.
Right. And you know what's fun though? Well, okay, maybe not. Fun maybe is not the right word. All right, no, it is kind of fun when you're able to do it.
Oh, I love it.
but it's the ability to get inside someone's head without saying a single word.
Yes, 100%. I'm just like, counterspell?
I think those are the two words that that are the easiest way to get her someone's skin in any card game. Counterspell?
Dan, now how many times have I gotten under your skin in these card games?
Multiple
Not saying
times.
nothing.
Multiple times. We have photographic and video evidence of said times.
Yep. And witness testimonies.
Oh, yes, 100%. We need to get Noah on here.
Oh, man.
Noah will be like, yes.
Oh man, we'd have to get AJ and Tyler out here as well. Like it's done. You're done.
You know who else is done? Tyler.
Tyler's done.
Tyler's done. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so this paragraph from James, it's honestly, it's kind of a pretty good overall. Yeah. But I think this is foreshadowing a little bit, but part of my answer to this whole thing is going to be, it's all personal. You have to be strong mentally to not let stuff affect you. Like a lot of this, I think a lot of it is a choice about being either. This is not even talking about being offended, because I think being offended is a choice. It's a personal choice. And that goes with anything. That goes with someone's behavior, someone's words that they're saying, anything. Yeah. Like, because I'm responsible for me. It's up to me to choose how I'm going to react and how I'm going to feel about said things. I mean, look, I remember growing up. I remember being a kid. I remember being on the playground and saying, "Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me." And it's not until for me, I can only speak from my experience, but it wasn't until I got married where I'm like, the only person who words really affect me is my wife. Anybody else, I don't really care. I don't care who you are. Don't care. Yeah. But anything that comes from my wife, it just hits a different way. Anybody else, whatever, I don't care. But I remember being on the playground and like having to teach my kids, like, you're responsible for your actions. You're responsible for what you say. You have to be nice. You have to be kind. But yeah, kids are not going to be so kind to you. You can't respond. Yeah. And teaching that to my son is easier said than done. Let me tell you. But anyway, what was your overall take on that paragraph? Because I know that paragraph was one that you even said something about.
The middle one.
It was James.
I thought it was more funny because I put a period after a part where there wasn't a period. So I was just like, the TCG veterans take it very seriously and they aren't used to having women around. Period. Which was hilarious to me.
That is kind of funny. Oh, goodness gracious. That's funny. Anyway, all right, his last paragraph says, "I'm generally enjoying my experience," this is James speaking, "because I lean competitive but am a massive Disney fan that wants to make people feel welcomed. But I've seen so many casual fans fall off between product shortage and a community that's heavily leaning towards competition, and I it says empathize. There we go. Empathize with them feeling pushed out. I also feel for TCG vets feeling judged for just doing what they do, which is optimize and play to win." Yeah, you shouldn't. Yeah, you play to win. Most people play to win. Even if you're a casual player, you're still probably playing to win.
It's like if you get mad that you lost at any point in your career.
You've got a little bit. I got news for you. You got a little bit of competitive in you, just a little bit. Yeah. All right. So that was James' initial post, which kind of highlights a lot, within the casual v competitive debate within Lorcana, right? I think it does a pretty good job of synopsing it, right? So now I have to find. So then, okay, come on. There we go. Jedi Geek Girl commented, and then so she had a conversation between Traverse Tavern. Okay, and this was kind of a good conversation. So I kind of want to go through this as quick as we can, and then just kind of chime in a little bit, and then just give our opinions and give our takes here. So Jedi Geek Girl responds and says, "I empathize with the casual community more. How competitive Lorcana is given what what it is kind of weird, given that there are other TCGs for them that fit them better, where the opposite isn't true for Disney fans and other more casual Lorcana people. Casuals shouldn't be pushed out. So a couple things here. Where she says, given that there are other TCGs for them that fit them better. I don't agree with that because that is a very personal thing, right? It's no one's place to say, hey, there's more competitive games that they're going to fit they're going to fit you better, Jim. You should go play those.
I think you're right.
Again, like number one, like that's a very personal thing. Yeah. Like, and again, I know what I like. I have no idea about anybody else. I can only speak to my tastes, right? Do I think Flesh and Blood is a more competitive game than Lorcana? No, I don't. Why do I think that? Because how competitive something is not objective based. That's a very personal thing of, hey, I want to be more competitive in this thing, right? Because being competitive in something, or competitive X and competitive Y, I don't necessarily think you can compare them from a competitive level. There's no competitive scale to say, hey, this game is more competitive than this, right? Just like objectively speaking, right? Because I think at its heart, like how competitive something is 100% determinant by what effort gets put into it by the player, right? Again, you take a look at chess. I could never play chess competitively. I mean, no, I shouldn't say that. I could, but I have to put a lot of time and effort into it. Yeah. Right. And it's not something I'm going to put time and effort into. I am more likely to put time and effort into Lorcana and play competitive Lorcana than I am to play competitive chess. So I think the notion that there is a competitive game that's out there that's going to suit you and your needs better is, I just don't think objectively accurate. I don't think it's true. What do you think?
I can kind of see it just in terms of...
You can kind of see what?
There being a better thing to suit someone. All right, let me just get the wording correct.
Sure.
So that there are other TCGs for them that fit them better. So, but the thing is, they might just not know this. So then they'd have to go out and research and find these other card games that they may or may not know anything about, and then put the time into that. And it's like, but they want to put the time into Lorcana. So again, that's just completely up to them. But if that person knows, they're like, okay, I don't really want to have to worry about resources in terms of lands. And you know what? I really like the aesthetic of Disney Lorcana, and I like a lot of the cards in it that are being played. Well, just to be like, well, since you're a competitive player, go play Magic. Go play Yu-Gi-Oh! If you don't want to worry about resources, why aren't you playing Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, I mean, there could be a lot of reasons you don't want to go play Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's like, yeah, that can be true, but it's also like, you can't just be like, Dan, since you want to be more competitive, we're going to find you this other game for you to go play.
I think, so there's only one thing I don't agree with you there. Right, I agree with that. Like, I think, yeah, it could be true, but I don't think it necessarily even is true. I think it's more so not true, right? Because let's go to this next thread here from Traverse Tavern. It says, I will say that as a competitive player, Lorcana is, quote, the game that I want to be playing right now. 4 bullet points. I do not enjoy Flesh and Blood. I do not want to be forced to pay the travel costs necessary to be competitive in Pokemon. So it sounds like they enjoy Pokemon, but it's too costly for them to be a competitive Pokemon player. Yeah. I do not enjoy Magic. I don't have the time to dedicate to Yu-Gi-Oh! The last thing that I don't have the time to dedicate to Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, if you're being competitive in anything, you kind of got to pick one. Because it, like we were talking about, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time. So he's got a couple other threads, posts along that go with this one. Next says, with Lorcana, there are dozens of competitive opportunities every week, and these are only increasing before official tournament support is even a thing. And again, that is 100% determinant on where you are located and what local support from local LGSs that are around you, right? also like what you're going to put up with from the standpoint of how far you want to travel to get to said events, right? I want this to be a place where people can enjoy the game however they want without the casual versus competitive debate. Newsflash is always going to be the competitive versus casual debate no matter what game it is, even if it's Uno.
It's not a debate, Dan.
So I cut that off, but it says they want however they want without the casual versus competitive debate that comes up in every game. There is room for competitive players. There is room for casual players. One party does not deserve to be here more than the other. I mean, I would agree. I don't think anyone deserves to be anywhere. Like we're all on equal footing here, I think. Communication between these players is the only way that we can avoid the unnecessary civil war that other TCGs go through. Unnecessary civil war was interesting. Do you think it's do you think it's a civil war? I mean, again, these are loaded terms, right? But what do you think?
Because I think it's super exaggeration of wordplay.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
But I did want to talk about his points. I understand that I don't enjoy Fab. I don't enjoy Magic because, again, it all comes down to you. The two things I'm a little confused upon is it says, I don't want to be forced to pay the travel costs necessary to be competitive in Pokemon. But it's also like, well, what's the competitive level you're looking for? Because as of right now, the competitive level, if you say you're a competitive player for Lorcana, is that like just locals?
Well, yeah, it could be.
So then...
Yeah, it could be like how far you're willing to travel, how much you're willing to pay to be competitive.
So that's also the thing where it's like, all right, if you're a competitive player in Lorcana, you're playing at a local level, why don't you just also play Pokemon at a local level and you're not forced to travel, except when Lorcana does get, big like Pokemon, are you then forced to go travel to those events?
I think everything that we're going to talk about from that is all speculation, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that point, what you're talking about, needs more. There needs to be probing questions asked.
Yeah.
Right. There needs to be probing questions asked.
So it was like that. I was kind of like, we could,
we could probe more. We could dig a bit more. Sure.
And then I don't have the time to dedicate to Yu-Gi-Oh. Is that because you dedicate stuff to Lorcana already? And it's like, if you figured out like your one game you want to be competitive in, then it's like, all right, why are you picking Lorcana over Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon? Is the Pokemon just because you don't want to have to travel somewhere to be big competitively, where as of right now, there's no big competitive for Lorcana?
In all honesty,
when we get there?
I don't think any of it matters, though, in all honesty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was more of just like, I could have questions for this person.
Well, sure.
So
sure, you could have questions for literally anybody.
Yeah.
When it comes to this specific
I'm
conversation, especially about card games. Okay. All right, so JGG continues here. It says the two are always at odds, which is why the casual people usually always prefer playing at home or with friends over attending events and traveling. Why should they be excluded unless they conform? A lot of these are, I think, necessitate more probing questions, right? Who feels excluded, and unless they conform to whom? Like, that would be my question. Because, again, we're not going to get any answers, right, at this table, right? I mean, I can understand the feeling of, hey, I don't feel like I belong because there's nothing here that's, quote, for me, from the standpoint of there's nothing here for what I'm looking for instance, right? So I can understand that, okay? Travis Tavern responds, says, I don't see any reason for them to be excluded, and I'm extremely vocal about everyone being included, no matter how they enjoy the game. Communication is key to make sure people playing with other people they may not know, so both parties can enjoy the experience. What do you think about that? Do you think communication's key when you're playing with people you don't know to make sure everyone enjoys the experience? What do you think?
I think it depends on what it is you're going to. If we're going to a tournament, I don't see the need of that communication. It's like we both know what we signed up for. This tournament, there's prizing. It's like, all right, you want to come here as playing your rogue deck, your casual list. It's like, and you just want to be here to meet people. Okay, well, have fun meeting people at the lower tables because I'm gonna be up at the higher ones, maybe, competing for this thing. Although there have been times I go into bigger Magic tournaments, thinking I'm going to be playing competitively. I go on like a losing streak and I'm just like, my mindset changes and then I end up at the lower tables. Guys, you can meet a lot of cool people at these lower tables because they're just there to have fun and meet people.
I think if you're at an event, you're all at the same event. Like I think you kind of know what you're going there for, right? And if you're playing a game, okay, well, normally, for the most part, if you're playing game, you signed up for some event.
Yeah. If it's the main event?
You've signed up for some event, right? If it's a casual event, all right, we're just here to have fun. And normally, from my experience with casual events, here's this pool of tickets, divvy them up however you want, or if you want to say, hey, there's all of them go to the winner, that's all up to you guys, right? Then that's up to, hey, we all just want to get one, we're just going to hang out and play some Commander or whatever the case may be. Great.
When we were playing the Commander side events at Gen Con, it was just like, all right, every single person gets 2 tickets. Winner gets 2 more tickets or whatever it was set up.
Right. And I think there were ones where even like you just all want to get them. We're like, we'll just divvy it up evenly or whatever. It was up to us.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I think again, it depends.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And it's just like, honestly, it just goes back to the problem of like people are just not having these events of like multiplayer for Lorcana to take their rogue decks to be able to work with other people to maybe win the game.
Right.
Versus one-on-one, it's going to get very reliant upon yourself. You can't rely on anyone else. It's just like, who's playing, like a better list. Well,
one-on-one games are always going to be inherently more competitive, I think, than any multiplayer, than anything multiplayer.
100%.
Right. So the only thing that I don't agree, I don't necessarily agree with this post where it says communication is key to make sure people playing with other people they may not know, so both parties can enjoy the experience. You know what? In all honesty, here the only thing I have to say to this is, Jim, it's not up to me. Your enjoyment is not up to me. Yeah. Your enjoyment is up to you.
Yeah.
My enjoyment is up to me.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not up to me to make sure everyone at my table has a good time. Okay. And the reason I say this is, again, I always go back to personal accountability and making sure you treat people well. Okay. You be kind and everything, but I'm not going to let if I'm playing multiplayer, right? I'm not going to let the 3 other people there determine what kind of fun I'm going to have. I'm going to make sure that I enjoy myself and I will do my best to have a good attitude. But ultimately, if you walked in from that event, from that game and said, I didn't have fun, that's not my problem. That's not my fault. That is a choice. Okay. Now, again,
I'm going to save this for later when we're playing 4-man pod and I really make you not have fun. That's on you. Okay. Remember
you're right. He is correct. And I will say this. I'll say this right here. Okay. Every single time that I've gotten upset and frustrated, it's not been anyone's fault but mine because I made the choice to get upset and frustrated. Yeah. Okay. So if that one video where I let it out and I was playing for the memes, but I was also not having a good time. Okay. And I've said this many, many times. Jim did nothing wrong. Like Jim was Jim trolling? Yeah, Jim, you were trolling a little bit, weren't you?
I mean,
a little bit. Maybe not the majority. I wouldn't say the majority of it.
Controlling.
Controlling.
I was controlling the game.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. Yeah, but you did lean into it a little bit. Would you agree or no?
There were definitely times where I could have just been like, okay, I'm going to do something else. Definitely could have been times. But I'm also like, that you had like some really good cards out on board. I'm like, I can't let that happen.
Yeah.
I'm like, because then that just sets me really far back.
Was there any point in that game where you leaned into it a little bit of I'm gonna poke and prod a little bit?
It's hard for me to say, really.
Do you remember? No.
It's hard for me to say. Because it was also, there could have been
Guys, that game was a lot of fun.
Like the creatures out on board where it was like, all right, well, if I don't get this, I really don't want to take the risk of this bad thing happening. So I was just like, and I was like, I'm just extremely close already.
Right.
So I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to still play to this.
Right.
So it's really hard for me to say where my mindset was at.
Right. No, yeah, but it was 100% my attitude was on me. Like how I acted was all on me. Like my enjoyment was up to me. Okay.
Yeah.
So now again, two things can be true at the same time. Okay. Yes, I think it's up to me to control how my attitude and how I enjoy it. Right. But I also think you should do your best to, again, depending on the environment, like if you go to an event and everyone knows what the event is, okay, like be kind, try to be a good person, all that good stuff. But at the same time, it's not up to me to make sure everybody has fun, right? I'll be kind, I'll be good, and I'll be nice and everything, do all those things, right? But at the same time, recognize it's not up to me to make sure you have a good time.
It is also different, it depends on the setting. Like if you're going to a tournament, don't expect that sort of thing.
No,
if we're grouping up with, if we're grouping up with AJ Tyler for like the first time and it's like someone bust out something a little too powerful than what it is like we're all trying to achieve, then like we have that conversation.
Right.
So
and again, And so where he's not wrong, right? Communication is key.
Yeah.
I mean, the rule zero conversation,
Exactly.
that's conversations.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I'm like, I agree, but I also or I should say I don't agree, but I also agree.
Yeah.
Right. Because again, going to event, that's one thing. You've kind of done that communication already. But hey, I'm showing up at my LGS, have that conversation of, hey, what are we trying to do here?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where he's not wrong at all.
If
100%.
you're paying for a tournament and there's money on the line, it's up to you if you don't want to be competitive.
I think everyone in this thread would agree, yes.
Yeah.
Like in that setting, in that environment, correct. However, like both people here in this thread are saying those events, there should be different types of events for 100%. Casual and for competitive. So let's continue here. So JGG responds says, can you blame them, though, for not wanting to spend the time and money to go to events to get their face pounded in by meta decks that aren't fun for them to play? It's discouraging. I can agree with that. I understand that. Not to mention the attitude some competitive players give to others. Of course, they don't want to deal with that. And again, the only thing I would say to that is that's up to you. Like you got to learn. Again, if you're in any TCG, you can't let this stuff bother you. Like you can't. Is it easy? No, I'm not saying it is. But you need to get to the point to where, hey, I'm not going to let what other people say, what other people do affect me or get under my skin, especially when you're just trying to have fun and be casual, right? If you say, hey, I'm a casual person and player, I want to play casually and have a good time, then it should be harder for people to get under your skin.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing competitively, I get it. I understand when there's money on the line. But if there's nothing on the line for you other than your enjoyment, I think theoretically it should be harder for other people to get under your skin. Yeah. Theoretically. So that's the only thing I would say to that.
Yeah. I think I was also just thinking about it. You can still find and have a good time at these tournaments if you're a casual person, but it's like kind of all dependent upon your mindset of, okay, I'm going to go here. I know I'm going to spend $6, get nothing, but I'm going to try and just talk to the people I'm playing the game with and just like find out who they are as a person.
Yep.
And you're going to be growing these relationships with people. It's like, if you're just going there and being like, oh, I'm paying $6 and I'm losing everything, but you're a casual person. It's like, what is your objective here?
Right.
It's like, you want to go there and meet people? Well, understand that if it's in a 1v1 situation, you're going to have like 50 minutes with the one person. And it's like, okay, I know for future reference, I'm not going to really want to talk to this person because you know where they're at and they might just not mesh well with you.
Right.
So you have to put in the time and effort to find those people that are on the same wavelength with
the
you,
same
essentially.
level. Sure.
And that's just going to take time.
Right.
And posting on Twitter ain't going to be helping.
But here's the thing, though. Yeah. It kind of could, though, because what are you in essence? What could you be doing on Twitter? Making and gaining relationships. You could be furthering relationships on Twitter, which I know has happened. I 100% know that has happened, especially within the Lorcana community since the game started. Now, so there's two things that I'm going to say here. I know this is not what Jedi Geek Girl here is kind of talking about. I know she's talking about like events, and we'll get to that. And we will 100% will get to that, right?
Events are different.
We'll get to that, right? But the other thing I will say here is I'll give you a great example, okay? MinMax Games, a local game store not too far from us, led by some great people, okay? And they were also the center. And this is where last week we kind of – was it last week? Oh, last week we were talking about the scalpers thing, right? Yeah. And MinMax was at the center and heart of the discussion between scalpers and pricing about because they priced their boxes pretty high and people were not happy, and people said some not nice things, and I got mad. I got upset about the things that people were saying, and we were sitting here talking about not letting what people say affect you, right? But the reason I got upset was because I know the people at MinMax, and the things that were being said about them were not very nice. So I DM'd some people and was like, yeah, no, let's not say these things about friends of mine because you're wrong. Number one. Number two, like you don't speak on things you don't really know too much about. But anyway, I say all that to say, MinMax Games, a local game store. I've gone to multiple Flesh and Blood tournaments. Do I play Flesh and Blood? No. Did I go to those events to play Flesh and Blood? Nope.
It's honestly a great place to fall asleep at. I'm not gonna lie. It's very peaceful.
But I didn't go to play Flesh and Blood. I just went out to hang out with people.
Yeah.
We played Flesh and Blood once, I guess. You and I
yeah, we did.
We played Blitz, one of these events. But I've gone to multiple events and not played Flesh and Blood. I would just go meet people, hang out, further relationships, and just hang out and chill. Yeah. And it was a great time. Yeah. And like I knew what I was going to do, right? I didn't go again. Did I play Flesh and Blood? No. I didn't, right? But like I would bring some other stuff and say, hey, we're gonna sit down here, we're gonna play, and we brought some other games and played. But like that's a good example of, hey, I'm going to a competitive event, not for competitive reasons. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So all right. So Traverse Tavern responds and says, I'm extremely vocal and discouraging of any behavior at events, locals, online, from competitive players talking down to or about casual players. This happens across the board. Like it's not limited to competitive saying bad things about casuals. It happens across the board for everybody, right? It happens. I'm not saying it's good, but it happens. People are people.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. Regarding the events, I would love to see side events that may be more attractive toward casual audiences while also having higher stakes. Because I think for the most part, that's what a lot of competitive players are looking for, is the high stakes. Yep. They want the money. They're putting all this time and effort into a game to be financially rewarded. Yep. And I can't blame them. Like that's what they tend to do. Yeah. Let me actually see here real quick. Oh, yeah, and then he says events as the main event for the competitive players who are there as well. I would also like to see some events that cater towards casual play alone. So JGG responds, says, I would prefer the opposite, actually, where the focus is on the brand, community, and a celebration of the game with more competitive elements being a part of the event, but not the focus. I mean, look... That I think that interaction right there, I don't know. That's just a personal thing. Like I think that's just a personal thing. Like you're not just go to what you're looking for. I guess. But we will respond to all this kind of at the end about where we think where this ultimately comes down to. But let me ask you: when you go to an event, what are you normally looking for? Because I mean, when's the last time you've even been to a big event?
A big event? It's been a long time.
It's been a while, yeah.
It has been a while. I don't know exactly.
Outside of Gen Con, I think the last big event, the only event I've ever been to is a Command Fest, where like the focus was just casual Commander, and there were big competitive events there, and people. But the thing is, like, I think anytime you're going to have any sort of money on the line, more people are going to travel in for that. People aren't going to travel in from out of state for a casual event just to come and have fun. I don't think.
Yeah,
For the most part.
The only way I could see it is if it was like a really big thing, you know, like a convention thing.
And JGG talks about MTG 30 here in a minute, right? But I don't think you can talk about anything Magic about when we're talking about events. You have to separate out Magic. You have to separate. I think you got to separate out Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon from everything else, because I don't think any TCG event is gonna be on the level of anything out of those three games. Oh, Flesh and Blood, because Flesh and Blood at least has been around for a little bit. But I'm not sure I'm not sure if any of the numbers of any Flesh and Blood event have been. I think they just had their World Championships, I think, are happening now or have happened. I can't remember. As you can tell, I don't keep up with what's going on in the Flesh and Blood world.
There's like I played 2 games in my lifetime.
I played a couple of games. Yeah, I haven't played a lot. I don't know. I barely know anything about the game. But I have a lot of friends who love that game, and they're amazing people. Yeah. And I will go to those events just to hang out with them because they're amazing people. Yeah. Period.
Yeah.
So,
but for me personally, going to these events, all the ones I have been to, it first started as I'm going to see how well I can do in the tournament, and took it seriously. And then I find out, I'm like, all right, these kind of take a while, and I don't have the mental stamina to be playing in these sorts of things. I'm just glad that I've noticed that about myself rather than being like, you know, being upset that I'm just not doing well in tournaments, you know, as it goes on. And I kind of just
do you want to be competitive in any game, in any card game?
Honestly, I don't know if I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think I'm like, oh, that would be sick. I love playing these meta decks. It's real strong, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, I don't think I want to be the player for it. It's more of I don't mind essentially being a coach for people, and having the knowledge for it and helping people play test and going through a bunch of things, helping with research, whatever it is. But yeah, I don't think I have the desire to be the player competitively.
So I have to separate out like desire from reality.
Yeah.
Right. Because with me, I got a full-time job. I got kids. I got a wife. I got a fam. I have so many responsibilities.
Yeah.
I don't think realistically, I don't think I could play any card game competitively.
Yeah.
Now, desire, I don't think I have any desire right now to play any game competitively. I don't have a desire to play Lorcana competitively.
Yeah.
I think if there's one game that I would want to play competitively, in all honesty, I think that might be Star Wars Unlimited. Like, I think Star Wars Unlimited, and I've been posting about this to Twitter. Like, I am more excited about Star Wars Unlimited than I've been. Like, I'm more excited for Star Wars than I was about Lorcana.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about Unlimited than anything. I think Unlimited is gonna be awesome. I think this game looks so awesome and so cool. I mean, I remember when we found out how to play Lorcana, I was like, oh, cool. It's not my cup of tea from a competitive and more strategic level. Yeah. Do I enjoy Lorcana? Absolutely. I think Lorcana is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
But Lorcana would never be the game that I think I would want to play competitively.
Yeah.
I would be the one making just poking at the people who play competitively just to be that guy. And then when they get upset, you'll be like, I'm kidding.
Look,
I love you.
Trolling.
I'm just trolling. But Star Wars Unlimited, I think, would be the game that I'd want to, if I ever got that itch to play competitively. It might be Star Wars Unlimited, right? But like I don't want to play Magic competitively. Again, I haven't played Flesh and Blood. I don't want to do it. I
like a lot of the Flesh and Blood stuff, and then there's some things I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
but like with Flesh and Blood, I'm like, since I'm not in it and I don't really understand it, like I have a baseline knowledge and like I'm good right there.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
It's not something else I really want to get into and be like, all right, now I need to get all these. Just I've got too many other things, and I'm like, I'm already into it. So, okay, let's get back here real quick. So JGG says like I didn't go to an MTG 30 event, but I got vibes that's what that was. I think she might be correct there because I know that like at MTG 30 there were a ton of different events and like the focus I think from that event was the gathering and they really leaned into that heavy. I think and there were competitive events there. Like there was a big tournament there I think. But like that wasn't the reason they were holding the event, right?
It's the exact same thing how I see like BlizzCon for like World of Warcraft, all of their games. It's like you're going there to meet a bunch of people, and sure, there's a tournament there, but it's really just the pro players are playing in those tournaments, and it's just like everyone else can. There's going to be a bunch of computers set up. You want to try the new games that they're announcing or go play whatever game it is, WoW, insert any other Blizzard game. And it's just, you're going there as it's a convention, grouping up with people, and sure, they have these other things going on. But when they made the was it MagicCon? Or Magic Fest? Yeah. I mean, that's essentially, or M30,
MTG 30.
Yeah, 30. And they turned it into that convention thing, like you're saying, the gathering part of it. That's exactly kind of what people are looking for. They want to go to these conventions.
And I do think part of it is that's a personal individual thing. Like, well, what are you looking for? Like, you could go to a competitive event for different reasons, right? Like I think it's more so up to the individual going to the event of what their goal is. Now, there's definitely a big part from the developer, publisher, whoever it is, like whoever's putting on the event. What kind of event is this going to be? Is it going to be billed as? That's definitely a big part of it for sure. But I think we can't discount and not recognize the effect that the individual people going to the event, what they are specifically looking for in going to that event, right? So let's finish this off here, right? So Travis Tavern says, I believe there's room for both levels of events to exist. 100% agree. But I think it's important to note that if there's any prizing included, there will be players who are competitive who want to try and win. Absolutely 100% correct. And says, again, I think the communication between parties is the most important thing. Again, depends. I agree, but I think it depends, okay? JGG says, I believe that there's room for change in how large events are ran for TCGs, but no one wants to find that answer because they are so conformed into this one box and to how they have to be done. I don't think that's necessarily true because I think you're only looking at a couple specific games that have large enough followings to have these types of events, right? So I don't think that's necessarily true. Then Travis Tavern says, I agree, and I think having room for competitive players and casual players to enjoy themselves is part of that. I've seen too many wars on both sides in TCGs, and it always just evolves into the same aspects. I'd prefer not to see that here. It's still going to happen, and you're still going to see it here. And then JGG says, right now, though, it's clearly being tilted to one side without anything really on the other side to balance things out. Till it happens, it's nothing but lip service, nothing more. And I think the reason for that is Lorcana just came out. We have no OP support. And Travis Tavern says that. There's no OP support. We have had nothing from Ravensburger. Everything right now, it's all competitive events because that's what attracts people to travel to these events, right? Like local events aren't going to get big turnouts. Like the way you get large turnouts to anything is to have payouts normally, right? Outside of the, hey, I've been making content for this game that hasn't been a thing for a year and it just became a thing. Those people, again, yes, the Lorcana people, like that's a thing, right? But that's not the majority of people. right?
And they're not going to have Lorcon is like, oh, we got one set. We're gonna
Yeah,
have
they're
this
not going to
big
have that
thing.
yet. They're not going to have that yet because
Yeah.
again, they have to. It's a proof of concept right now. And I think in order to put something like that, you have to think about what kind of resources it takes to run an event like this. I'm telling you right now, Ravensburger is not equipped to run anything like that. They are not equipped. They're not. And I think we would get anyone from RB here. If we were talking to any of them, they would tell you, yes, that's correct. I can't imagine they'd be ready for anything like that. I think they will one day because I think Lorcana is going to just continue to grow, and it's going to take a lot for Lorcana to continue to grow. All right, so I think the two big things here, okay, is I think this entire thread, what it devolves down to is two things. I think, okay, number one, you getting that publisher support. Getting publisher support, because right now every event that's happening is all third party. It's all independent third party, which is all well and good. Yeah. And like that's the community. That's the community stepping up and running these events. But what types of events are you going to get people come? Because again, like if we did a Hobbies and Happiness 1K or we did a Hobbies and Happiness event, okay, how are we going to get people to come in from out of town to do this? We got to put money on the line. Like that's how you attract people to come. So of course it's going to feel like, to me, it's kind of obvious why it feels tilted to one side, because that's what you see being advertised. Is that's what's going to get people to travel. Just I think this weekend was Miami TCG Con, and what did they advertise? They advertised a lot of competitive events. Yeah, sure. They said, hey, we're going to have artists here. We're going to have all these other things. There's going to be side events, right? But the main things are, hey, there's money on the line.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of people sign up for the Lorcana tournament and whatnot.
And
that's how you get people to travel.
Unless you live close to the event, you're not going to be like, oh, hey, I'm a casual player, and be like, oh, hey, casual player, come drive 7 hours to this event,
or
drop
$1,000 on travel. And people do that for Gen Con, because Gen Con's been around for a long time, but they don't do that for anything else. Like, so I think it's in all honesty, I think it's a bit silly to be like, hey, I'm going to go to Gen Con, hang out with all these people. Why aren't there more things like this that are for me, the casual player? Well,
Gen Con is very, it's not like specified at all as to what's there. It's board game or games. Yeah. But it's like, you know how many games there are?
Dude,
you know how many vendors are at Gen Con?
Dude. Gen Con is so much fun. Yeah. Gen Con's a ton of fun.
Like if you like games in general, go to Gen Con.
Right. So hang on. This thread kind of finishes up here. Okay. I'm going to read these last two posts. Traverse Tavern says, I understand that. And I think that's mainly because organized play hasn't ramped up yet. And advertise 1 to 2Ks for competitive players will usually pull in more business for stores running them. 100% correct. Casual play will need to be more organized at the local level by players right now. Where did that go? I'm sorry. Yep. Yeah. Something like a theme night, multiplayer formats, team matches, sealed, and tons more. Most stores won't organize them on their own right now because it's more effort for usually less businesses. That's true, because they're going to lose a lot of money. And unless you have something that pulls in that money, pulls in that capital, you're just spending a ton of money. And I'm sorry to break it to you, because again, the casual audience is not what finances many of these games or stores. It's not. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, honestly, after hearing Magic's numbers, I'm like, oh, I don't know now about the
what
about the casual scene. They get a ridiculous amount of money for Magic from the casual scene. But in terms of
but we have to talk. But we're not talking about that. Level, we have to talk about the local level.
Yeah, if we're talking about local level, I don't really see it, because who's going to be spending more stuff if they're buying singles from you, if they are buying a bunch of sealed product from you, who's going to buy more? A casual player or the competitive player
Right.
who needs to get this stuff
Right.
to compete.
Right. So yeah, but these things are fun, and I think local communities should be doing it. I don't necessarily disagree. And then JGG finishes this by saying, until that changes, they're going to keep pushing out casual players from their store. I think honestly, I think that's on the casual player.
Yeah.
Like you have, like if you want to play it casually, like you can't let what other I've said this many times here. You can't let what other people do affect your enjoyment. Like that's 100% up to you. But at the same time, again, from an LGS standpoint, like if you want to keep those people coming to your store, offer what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Like if they're looking for these types of events, offer those types of the events, right? So I want to wrap this up by saying I think ultimately it comes down to two things. Everyone involved, right? It's the public. Well, but seriously, because you have to, my answers are both sides.
You're not wrong. It's literally everyone involved.
It's both sides. Like the publishers and the LGSs, they have to offer those types of events of what their communities are looking for. And I think, again, with a brand new game, it takes time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Lorcana comes out and then you can expect, all right, look at what Magic's doing. Why aren't you guys doing that? Come on. I don't think that's a very good barometer to be like, this game has been on for 30 years. Yeah. Why are we not doing what they're doing?
It's like, what are they going to do for pricing? We ain't got no product.
Right.
There ain't no OTS packs. There's no nothing.
And I've said this from the get-go with Lorcana. They're learning so much here.
Yeah.
Like they don't know how to run. They don't know how to make it. I shouldn't say they don't know how to make a TCG because they do, because this game is fun and they're doing a good job, right? But it's more than that. It's more than just making a good game.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about building community and OP and everything, is a whole lot more than that.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I want, in all honesty, that I want to see from Lorcana, I think there's I don't want to say there's too much involvement with the Lorcana HQ Discord, because that's not a bad thing, right? But I think the way I want to phrase it is, I think they utilize that as their, hey, I'm going to talk with the community, and this is the way to do it, is through this one Discord. So I don't know. I think maybe I'm just looking into it a little bit too much, right? Because when we're seeing a lot of these card reveals and everything, it's, hey, we're going into these Discords and releasing them in the Discords and not like directly for everyone who's not a part of those Discords to see. They rely on everyone in those Discords to put them out. I don't know. Is that am I just being petty? Is that a bad thing? What do you think? Because like the way that I view it is like almost preferential treatment almost. Does that make sense of what I'm saying to you right now? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
So, okay. So again, I'll just say complaint, all right? Just for lack of a better word, okay? My complaint is, okay, the Lorcana team, they communicate, their communication with the public normally has been through certain Discords. They're not official Lorcana Discords. Yeah. They are fan-run, like the Lorcana HQ Discord, okay? They communicate with them fairly regularly. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I don't think it's a bad thing, okay? But they'll push out a lot of new cards and say, hey, here are these certain card reveals directly in the Discord. So they do it within these Discords. There's a French Discord that they do it in as well. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? But they'll communicate and talk with everyone in that Discord, right? But they don't do any of that stuff outside of those Discords. So what I'm saying is it feels almost as if, hey, if you're not in those Discords, you're missing out. But why should I go in those Discords? Like, I don't want to go in those Discords. Like, I feel like I'm not being communicated to, or I'm being treated the same way unless I'm in those Discords. So it feels almost as if it's like preferential treatment if you're in the Discord. And again, none of this is a bad thing. Like, I don't think communicating these Discords is a bad thing, but it almost feels as if they're preferencing.
Well, they're putting it in the Discords, or they'll also put it on like Twitter or whatever social media.
They do not do that.
They don't put it on.
They do not. People who are in the Discords do it. but it's not from official sources. Like it's not being posted from official Lorcana sources. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's the people who are in those because normally what happens is they'll put out a new card, they'll reveal a new card in one of those discords, and then the same 10 people will then repost that card and say, hey, look what just got revealed in the Lorcana HQ Discord. If you're missing out, don't miss out. Come join us in this Discord. Right? But again, it's not an official anything. None of this is official from Disney Lorcana.
Yeah.
The team.
That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, sure, they could throw it on like their Twitter, right? And post it there, but then the people from Discord just will take it and post it in the Discord. I
would rather go that way. I would much rather go that way because again, then I would feel like I'm not missing out on anything because I'm not a part of the cool kids club, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? Like it's a feels bad feeling, and I know I've talked about, hey, that's all on you, the whole thing. I get it. I just I think this is an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I really don't think I care enough. I'm like, I don't care where they post it as long as I get the info on the card. And if it's like, as long as it's legit. But like, if they post it there, then you get the information like 5 minutes later on Twitter of people blowing stuff up.
It has nothing to, but it has nothing to do with the information though. That's not the crux of the matter.
So you would just feel better if they posted on their official stuff.
This has nothing to do with like how I'm feeling, right? What I'm saying is, I think if you had,
I thought this whole part right here was because of it.
Partly, okay. It partly is, but what I'm saying is, if you have a conglomeration of people who feel that same way, that could cause a problem. Like what I'm saying is, none of these sources are official. Like the Discord, it's not an official Lorcana thing. It's not. It's a fan-run community, right? None of it's official, right? Okay. So again, what I'm saying is, if you are prioritizing this community over here, like let's say there's 10 Discords now that pop up, okay? There's 10 Lorcana Discords, but the Lorcana team is only in this one Discord. It's not an official one. Okay. This is not an official Discord,
right.
But they are continue to release and talk with and communicate with people in this Discord, in just one specific one. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's how it has nothing to do with getting information.
I don't think I care enough.
I understand you don't care enough about it. I get that. But
I don't care where they post it. It doesn't matter to me.
But that's my whole thing is you're preferencing this group of people over here. You're communicating with them. If it was an official thing, like if it was an official Discord, that's one thing. Right. But if it's a fan thing, hey, we're only going to talk to the fans in this Discord over here. It just seems a bit weird to me, right? Yeah. Because that's what I'm saying is I think then you can start getting, you could get everyone who's not in that Discord being like, well, hang on, like, why aren't you communicating with us over here, but you're only communicating with them over there? It's a weird dynamic.
It's like
right?
businesses set up relationships with people and continue to foster them and not move to other people.
Say that again?
It's essentially they have built relationships with the people at that Discord, potentially,
sure.
Continue to foster it versus go to a different Discord. Yeah, I mean,
again, I don't necessarily, I don't care. Like it's not. I'm not saying this from the standpoint of I'm offended. I feel slighted. No, it's none of that. It is none of that at all. But what I'm saying is I think this could cause problems within the community itself, the Lorcana community as a whole, because the Lorcana community is not the Lorcana like this one Discord.
Yeah.
It's everyone who enjoys and wants to play the game. But if you're only communicating with this certain group of people, it could potentially cause problems. And I don't want to see that, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that could happen or it is happening. I'm not saying none of that. This is all a hypothetical, theoretical, dumb conversation that we're having, all right?
And I'm Jim. Take care.
And I know Jim is like the worst person to have this conversation with because he's like, I don't care at all.
I don't care.
Literally don't care. And that's a problem. That's the issue with Jim sometimes. Is
it is.
He'll only talk about things that he cares about. It's like, well, come on, man.
I'm like, you can't make me care about stuff. Like,
I know,
what
and
you
I'm not
want from me.
trying to. That's the thing. I'm not trying to make you care about it. Anyway, I just wanted, and that's the thing. Like when I asked Jim, "What's your thought on this?" I don't know. I don't care. All right, that's normally where that conversation stops. It stops dead in its tracks. Of he doesn't care. All right, I guess I'm moving on then.
Next question.
Jim's the worst person to have hypothetical, theoretical conversations with. Anyway, all right. So I said all of that, right? Talking about the whole casual v competitive thing.
Yeah.
It comes down to two groups of people, right? The publishers themselves, the ones putting these events out there. You have to know what the community wants. You got to know what your community needs. What is everyone looking for? And that's why at the start, I said I think Star Wars Unlimited has done a great job because already they've talked about OP. They've talked about, hey, we're going to have stuff for casual people and competitive people alike. And that's great. Like they're communicating right out the gate of what their stuff is going to look like. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, as a player, as a person participating in these events, it's up to you to say, hey, I'm gonna participate. I'm gonna have fun and not let what other people do bother or affect me. That is very much a personal choice. So, all right. With that being said, we're gonna talk about the card. We're gonna move on. Actually, I guess before we move on, we need to talk about what do you guys think. Let us know what you guys think. What do you think about casual v competitive? Are we right? Are we wrong? Am I right? Wrong? What do you think?
Turtle dude, say I don't care. I think it'll be funny.
I think it'd be hilarious if he like feels extremely strongly one way or another.
And at the end of it, Jim's correct. I don't care.
All right. We're going to talk about now the card of the week. We've decided we're going to talk about a Star Wars Unlimited card. This is an interesting card. Okay, my wife really needs to just stop texting me right now. I'm going to turn it on Do Not Disturb. Thank you.
We're working.
Yes, that was my wife texting me. Oh, we're having a good time. Holy
No
cow.
one's safe.
Okay. Okay, this card, it looks interesting. I'm curious as to Jim's thought on this. All right. So the card is Lando Calrissian. Okay. Yeah. He is cunning and heroism. Yeah, cunning and heroism. Okay. 6 costs, ground unit, 6 cost. He's a 6/5 fringe official ground unit. He has Saboteur. And for those of you who don't remember, Saboteur is when this unit attacks, ignore Sentinel, and defeat the defender's shields. I love the Saboteur keyword.
It's great.
And then he has an ETB, when played, return up to 2 friendly resources to their owner's hands. It's a rare card. Yeah, so Rogue, Jim, what's your first take on this?
Dude, when I first read this, I'm like, why would I ever play this? Why am I ever going to want to return 2 of my resources to my hand? Except, I mean, there could be some times where you're like, I kind of want this card back.
I was going to say, the first thing you got to talk about, right, is the resource system. Yeah. Like, you're using your cards as resources, okay? Yep. And what's the one big... So, you know, we've talked about the whole resource thing many, many times, right? Yeah. How we... flooded, resource flooded, lands and land screwed, all that good stuff with magic, right? But now with a type of system where your cards are your resources, you're going to be put in a situation where I have to resource this card, but I don't really want to because I want the card to be able to play. Now this is the type of effect where you can bounce that stuff during. So maybe couple turns before, you're like, I really want, this is like, it's a 2 of in the deck, but I cannot play this right now. Everything else is too good to have. I need to put this card out.
Or don't be afraid to put down like a 1 of that you're playing in your deck.
Right.
Because you can just get it back.
You can just get it back. Yeah. Right. And so I think in a game like Star Wars Unlimited, it makes this type of resource bounce or defeat thing with Han Solo as well much more interesting because, hey, now my resource row, it's going to be moving all over the place.
Manipulate the heck out of it.
So Lando, like base, Lando's a 6.5 for 6 with Saboteur. I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad at all, right? Maybe it's slightly less better than a typical base, right? 6.6 for 6 would be typical in most games, right?
I think I'd rather have this over a 6.6 for 6.
You think
In terms of because that Saboteur ability is really
Oh
nice.
yeah, 100%.
Real nice.
I was gonna say because that's what I think like gets taken away. Like
Yeah.
that's they took that one defense away, but give me Saboteur for one defense.
K.
Yeah, K. I will take that absolutely. But that when played ability, oh man, like it's not really a downside. It's not at all because it's up to. It's not return 2. It's return up to 2.
Card's broken.
Wait, did you just think about that?
I thought it was return 2. I mean, reading's difficult. But yeah. I mean, that's actually real sick. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm like, at first I'm like, why would I play this? It's essentially setting me back turns, but it's
kind of not.
that card's pretty good.
It's
guys.
not. Yeah, it's return up to. Okay, I will return because I will return
I'll
0.
return 0.
I will return 0. I will return 1.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like, why do I want to deramp myself?
Exactly.
But if it's in the later stages and you're like, I've got enough resources on board and I know this card's here. And you can look at your cards. I think like you can look at what's down in your resources. So you know what's there. Your opponent doesn't know. So you could be dude, like you can use like there's now going to be an archetype where you can use your resource row as your second hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sign me up, dude.
It's pretty cool.
It's a hand now that my opponent can't really touch unless we get cards that interact, which I'm sure we will, but still, like normally it's going to be easier for me to interact with my opponent's hand than my opponent's resources. So Lando Calrissian, responsible businessman, that is this week's card of the week. All right, so Jim, I did not think we were going to be talking about this for almost an hour and a half, dude.
I know.
I literally did not.
Dan was like, oh, this will be a shorter episode. That's fine. One of our longest.
I did not think we were going to talk about this for almost an hour and a half. Oh, my goodness. Wow. But that's what you get. That is what we get here at Hobbies and Hobbies. We're talking about the casual v competitive discussion. So
and talking from Twitter.
Yep. So, all right. Well, that's all we got. But again, before we get out of here, again, I want to kick to you guys. What do you all think? Well, let us know what you think. Are you a casual player? Are you a competitive player? Did you like that thread that we went through? Do you have any disagreements or comments? Just let us know. We'd be very interested to know what you think. And again, also, if you are a podcast listener and you listen especially on Apple Podcasts, would do us a favor. Leave us a 5-star review on the platform or any platform that you listen to. Leave us a 5-star review, and maybe when we get those reviews, and we'll be able to read some on the show. But yeah, it helps us get into more ears. If you got friends who like card games, send them this podcast. Get more folks listening to the podcast. So it really helps us out, leaving us a 5-star review. So before we get out of here, Jim, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram at Jim Morgan, HNH.
You guys can find me on Twitter, _DG Campbell, Instagram at Daniel.G.Campbell. Head over to our website, www.hobbiesandhappiness.com. You can find links to all of our social content there. We're on YouTube at www.youtube.com/hobbieshappiness. It's where all of our video content gets stored. We're still in the works on some video content stuff behind the scenes. Once we get all of that up and running, we're going to be back to making a lot of video content. Going to be kind of skewing heavy on the gameplay stuff, but that's what we do. We enjoy playing card games, so we want to get more of that content out there. So again, thanks everybody for hanging out with us today. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. If you like this on YouTube, don't forget hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those bell notifications to be notified when we release any new content. So with all that being said, thanks everybody for being here. Catch you in the next episode. See you, everybody.
Take care.